Hello and welcome everyone. It's Bev from Living Fabulously. And today my guest is Karen Gunton. So welcome to you, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your live show.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun. We've been going a couple of weeks and so it's good to have you here with me. So Karen, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself and what it is that you do.
Well, I am a Canadian living here in Australia, and I'm a teacher. I have an online business, and I work with women mostly on mindset and self-empowerment, being the leader of your own life. I use the lighthouse as a metaphor for what we're here to do and how we do it. You know, we use this word, shine our light a lot, but I like the lighthouse as a metaphor because I think it's actually an action, what we can be doing. How do we actually shine? Because I'm not really interested in lip service. And I think the word shine is sort of overused. So my thing is called the Lighthouse Revolution. And that's what I do. I teach people practical strategies to actually figure out what that means to shine.
Yeah, and then you take it that step further, and that's how we've also been working together, is supporting somebody who wants to create something and bring it to life in the world as part of their way to shine. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So we've been working together on this whole getting my book ready to launch and then getting the launch ready together. So thank you for being this guide. You've been certainly I love the quote that you use about you're a lighthouse, sort of being grounded and not running all over the island looking for boats to save. And I keep coming back to that.
Especially when you're in the middle of a book launch like you are, and you're bringing this thing to life that, is a passion project and will help other people, and it's got your whole heart and soul in it. It's hard to just stay grounded like a lighthouse shining and not be running all over, it's such a balance of standing in your truth and sharing your story and knowing and having that deep knowing that it matters.
Yeah, no, it's just been absolutely brilliant. So let's talk a little bit. I know you've done quite a bit of work, and I've seen following how you've been talking about self-leadership and self-care. So talk to us about that. What's been your understanding and the way that you've applied that to your health and well-being?
Well, I actually think, the idea of self-leadership is actually quite empowering. We hear the words like self-empowerment or personal transformation. And even, we talk about mindset and then, that's all, of course, part of it. But I like this idea of self-leadership because for me, it reminds me that it's up to me. No one else is going to come along and tell me what to do, how to do it. No one's going to come and pull myself out of the stuckness and show me the direction I need to go. It's up to me. And if you have your own business, if you are doing something like bringing a book to life, if you are, working in any way within your purpose, it really is about leading yourself. It's not like working for a corporation where you've got a boss who's going to come along and tell you exactly what to do. Yeah. And so I think that idea of self-leadership is actually really important because it reminds us that, we are in charge of our next steps. It's up to us. And when it comes to self-care and when it comes to our health, I think that holds the same, especially if you work on your own or you work from home or you are working on something like a book, no one's going to come along and tell you what's wrong with you. If you don't have energy, you don't feel well, you might even have a doctor say, oh, this is what's going on for you. But the next steps are still up to you. You are really in charge of your body, of this physical vehicle that is going to help you do the work you're here to do. And so you have to be a self-leader with it. You have to, put it first. Put your physical body first so that you can do the work that you're here to do and be the person that you're here to be. Because no one else is going to take care of it for you. It's all up to you.
Absolutely. And that's why in the book, Hope in a Dark Tunnel, I talk about the 4 aspects of yourself, because you do need self-care at a physical level, an emotional level, a sort of mind, the mindset stuff, and also your soul,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
what are some of the ways that you enact those type of things?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those 4 sort of areas, because what I've noticed for me is that oftentimes one is a mirror for the other. So if my sort of emotional strength or resilience, or my mental strength and resilience is low, then my body will often mirror that, and I'll wake up and I'll feel really low on energy, or really unwell. I get that feeling like I'm just so unwell and I just can't do it. And I realize it's not even necessarily something's physically wrong. It's a reflection of where I'm at emotionally or mentally or on a soul level. And so the more I've understood that, the better I've gotten at kind of balancing all 4 areas, and not just expecting, if I only focus on one, that everything else is going to be fine, because it's often not. And if you're feeling like, not very physically resilient, if you are feeling unwell, then I've noticed that then everything else kind of follows that lead. And so it's so important to take care of all 4 things. And I've only just kind of come around to that. Like, I used to just kind of ignore my physical self and think if I just powered through mentally or emotionally, I'd be okay. But that doesn't really work. And I often think to myself, on days where I'm not well, either physically or mentally or emotionally, I think, God, what an energetic, well version of me. What would that best sort of version of me be able to do? And I think about that, and I think that's what I want. Like, I want to be that physically well, emotionally well, mentally well version of me, because I think I could do amazing things, but I need to take care of myself in order to do that. And enough of ignoring it. You work from home and you sit all day, and you don't necessarily take care of yourself in all the ways. It just isn't going to cut it anymore. It's not sustainable.
No, and as we know that, my tagline is take care of your business as CEO.
Yeah.
So what are you...
that from you, I learned. And that's where I think that idea of self-leadership was really powerful to me, because I thought, if I don't take care of my business as CEO, this entire thing falls down. This mission that matters to me completely falls apart. No one else is going to do that job of taking care of the CEO of this entire vehicle except for me. It's up to me.
So what are some of the non-negotiables, Karen, for you to sort of feel that all those aspects are really high vibe and pumping?
Yeah, so I found for me, what I'm trying to actually do is really small baby steps, because I get overwhelmed with this idea that, oh my gosh, like I need to be doing all of these things, I'm not doing them, and so I have little tiny goals, like move every day instead of sitting here at this desk every day. And so if I just do something, even if it's only like 10 minutes of yoga or a little walk or something, I try. So that's a really small goal, but it means that I can fit that in with anything. And for me, I think yoga is probably a big one, but yoga also for me helps with the emotional and soulful side of things as well, the spiritual side. So it kind of ticks a few boxes, which is really good. Another one, I'm just simply actually just trying to eat a little bit better, because I found, like, working from home all these years on my own, that I just wasn't really fueling my body properly. I was kind of ignoring like what that would look like. So just trying to, slowly bring some healthier foods into my life, bring a bit more movement into my life, bring a little bit more of the soul aspect as well, spiritual aspect, with some meditation. And I think I've done a pretty good job in my life of taking care of myself emotionally. That's always sort of been where my strength is, introspection and self-awareness. It's the other areas I've really needed to work on. But for me, it's baby steps, even something as simple as drinking more water. I'm trying to drink more water, and I've noticed I can now tell the days where I haven't. And it's not just a physical thing, it's a mental and emotional thing as well. My resilience is really low, and my strength is low if I haven't had enough water. It's such a funny thing, but it's a small little thing that I've been trying to build into my life. Little baby steps, I'd say.
And I think, and the truth of that is that we are comprised of more than 75% water. So it's the elixir of life along with sleep. So sleep and water are kind of, if you could just get those two things right, you'd be well on your way, because both sort of nourish the body in different ways. And boost the emotional and mental aspects of the body as well. So it's finding that, I'm glad you're saying baby steps, because that's how I've done this in the book. Because when you are coming from a place of chronic illness, you don't need another book that is just so overwhelming. And that's why, for me, it was important to actually write it for somebody who was feeling overwhelmed by information, by what to do, and how to just take the very next step. And that to me is really important, to get that right.
Yeah. And I'd say that, I'm very fortunate that I am not, in a state of chronic illness and, haven't got any sort of diagnosis that I'm trying to manage. But for me, this sort of wellness journey is more about, as I said, like, what's the healthiest version of me like, and how can I take baby steps towards that? And I have to say, even, being in a place of having, really low energy, finding myself, getting sick over and over again, and also dealing with some, mindset and emotional things like depression and those sorts of things, that I've found and have found the messages of your book to be so relevant, because I just keep thinking, like, why wait till I'm at a state where I have, my body is not well at all, and now I'm having to really manage all of those other aspects. And I think for anybody who is, just making this decision, like I am trying to make, of taking better care of my business's CEO, I'm taking better care of my physical health along with my mental and emotional and spiritual health. The messages from your book have honestly made a massive difference to me. So for anybody who's listening and thinking, oh, I'm not really sure that's me, like I don't have a chronic illness, if you are dealing at all with just low energy, kind of poor health in general, or just feeling like you're not your best physical self or emotional and mental self, I've learned so much from the little strategies that you share. Just incorporating them slowly, as I said, baby steps into my life.
And we've, Linda's here. Thank you for this question, Linda. Linda's saying, sorry. I clicked something and it went away. Oh dear. This is the wonder of technology and Bev. Okay, so here it is.
Did you find out?
Because there was messages popping up. Sorry.
Yeah, I know it's hard to manage.
So Linda says, I'd love to hear more about the pressure to stay consistent and show up for every hashtag with illness and low energy levels. Do you think we're adding extra pressure on ourselves?
Well, I think that I have certainly been in that state of, feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing any of this right. There's too many things, and it does feel, I think, overwhelming and can be pressure. And that, I think that's for me, where I'm just being really gentle with myself, and those baby steps of, like, the simplest this year when I've been at my lowest, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and I've had that this year, where I've had some really sort of hard and dark periods, just making the simplest choice to drink more water, or just move at some point in this day, get up and move, and giving myself like really, really like low bar goals, it takes the pressure off. Like, it's not about changing my entire diet, getting more sleep, quitting sugar, quitting gluten, and having these sort of big things that feel like a lot of pressure. It's been tiny little low bar things, like drink more water, get out of bed and move your body, and just do those two things today, and then see how you feel tomorrow, and try again and try again.
Yeah. And I found also, in terms of, like, being consistent as an entrepreneur, is use tools that actually support your outward business to be consistent. So for example, if you've got a scheduler and you can do your content plan and schedule all those things. Another thing that Delise Lazara mentioned was that on the good days is plan ahead. Like she, when she's feeling well in all aspects, she batch cooks and she puts stuff in the freezer so that she can come back and nourish her body even on the days where she kind of really dragging herself out of bed to show up. And I think some of the other things that I'd say around the consistency is that, you know, it takes about 28 days to build a habit. So like Karen's saying, choose one or two things and start creating the habit around those things. So like I mentioned, water and sleep. If you are not well, those are two areas that are like the low-hanging fruit that I would put some effort into, because, you know, if you have a regular bedtime and then you're drinking your water consistently through the day, and I would call it front-loading water. It's better to drink more water in the morning than it is later in the day, because what you need to do is get the toxins flushed out the body, get water into the brain so that you can get creative and feel energized and lift the brain fog, and then, you know, get the regular sleep. So just supports you to lift your energy. Those two things alone would lift your energy if you were consistent with them. And so then once you've got those two well underway, then you could start to add something.
And I think, again, from the business side of things, like you can have that same approach as you said. Like what I do on the days that as I said, this year is where I've noticed it, where I've had some really tough periods, is if you just can show up every day and do the simplest, funnest thing. So it doesn't mean you have to be on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, blogging, emailing. You know, we've got this long list of things that we need to do for our business in our head, and that list is not going to go away. However, like even on days where you haven't got the energy, or you're not well, or you're not at your best, is even just showing up and just doing the simplest, funnest thing you can do, just one thing that day, and do that every day. It's still adding consistency, and it's something which is easier to recover from than nothing. So in periods where you have more energy and you are, you know, more well or more physically capable of doing some of this extra stuff, you've got a baseline to start with. Because I actually think what happens is it's a cycle. If you don't do anything at all for yourself physically, for your business, whatever it is, then you get into a place where you think, well, why bother? I haven't been doing anything, so I'm not going to do anything. And then because you still aren't doing anything, you still don't do anything. And it's really hard to get out of that downward spiral. So just doing one thing for yourself a day, one thing for your business a day, simplest, low-hanging fruit, simplest, funnest, whatever will actually allow you to show up for yourself and for your business.
Yeah, because I think it's right. We do put pressure on ourselves, and that's where that whole mentality that I talk about in my book about I had this, nobody told me, nobody said I should. I had this whole soldiering on mentality. Which was just the most ridiculous thing, because was showing up at work unwell helpful to me or others? No, because then everybody else got sick, and you know, all these type of things where we do put pressure on ourselves. So I think you're giving permission, Karen, to say on the days where you just feel low in energy, is choose the one thing that is fun and will move you one step forward.
And doable. And I think you think about that idea of soldiering on, like what does that mindset do to you physically and emotionally as well? It's like you've already made the decision that this is a war, and you're soldiering. You know, just changing that outlook and being kinder to yourself, I think, is so important.
Yeah. And so I think what I'd like to just check in before we close off is, what would a fabulous day look like for you? How does your day flow? You know, what does that fabulous day look like?
Oh, I think for me, it includes, you know, those things that we just talked about, like sleep, yoga. For me, it's yoga or a walk. out in the sun, and that time to, meditate and do something for myself on a soul level as well as a physical and emotional and mental level. And then having that sort of energy and that creative spark to just do things, because that's where I feel happiest, but it's the first thing to go when I'm not well in some area of my life. So that creative side and being able to help people, because that's really what I want to do, is help people. And so sometimes my one thing for me is just show up and help someone today. That's the only thing you can do somewhere, anywhere, then I can tick the box that my job is done. And then, so a best day is when that's happened.
Yeah, and that's what I keep reminding myself is, like when I wrote the book and we went through that process, it was, even if one person was supported by this book, it would have been worth writing. Yeah. And so now in the launch, it's if I show up today and I help one person. So it's been a wonderful journey and a tiring one. I've had to take better care of myself. I always do take good care of myself, but I'm finding that I've had to do more to make sure that I've got, like somebody said, it's like a marathon, so you need to pace yourself. Yeah. Any last nuggets that you'd like to leave us with today?
No, probably just what I've already said. I think that anybody who is on a journey of self-leadership, self-care, and putting your physical health in line with those other areas, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health, I think your book makes a massive difference. So, anybody who's on that journey, I think would get something from reading your story and learning those strategies, those simple baby steps that you share. I know they've made a big difference to me. So thank you for that. Thank you for reminding me that I am my business's CEO. And it's up to me to take care of her.